We're back with lines 309 to 313, lesson 15, and Dido is continuing to address Aeneas. Quin etsi berno molire sidere classem, et mediis properas aquilonibus ire per altum crudelis, quid si non arvaliena domosque ignotas peteres et Troia antiqua maneret, Troia per undosum perteretur classibus aequor? This sentence begins with the word quin, which you can translate many ways, but I would translate it here as no, rather, marking, it's used, I think, for some rhetorical effect here, so just keep that translation in your mind as we do the whole thing. No, rather. You could also say something like, aren't you in fact? I think it pairs up nicely with the etiam here. This all emphasizes it. Aren't you in fact? Making it sound like what Dido says Aeneas is going to do. It just sounds ridiculous. So let's take a look. Aren't you in fact properas, hurrying, properas, moliri, to prepare. We had the word moliri before when the Carthaginians were, let's see, it was when Dido was saying that she had to work hard at keeping foreigners away from her borders because of her situation when she talked to Aeneas in the temple of Juno. So it has a little stronger sense of than facere that he's really working hard here. Aren't you in fact hurrying to prepare your fleet? That's the object of moliri. Hiberneo sidera, under a winter star, or with a winter star. And sidere has the idea of tempore here, winter time, because of the way the stars in the sky are. So think tempore, winter time. Preparing your fleet in winter. This is something that the ancients just didn't do very often. They did not often sail during the winter months unless it was an emergency because it was so dangerous. The Mediterranean's known for very quickly having storms come up, and their ancient ships were not very strong, so you just didn't sail much during the winter. You call it a mare clausum, a closed sea. So let's put all that together again. Aren't you in fact hurrying to prepare your fleet, to work at preparing your fleet very hard, with the winter star, under a winter star, meaning winter time, and, to properas again, aren't you hurrying to go? Ire is the complementary infinitive now with properas, whereas moliri was up here. These are both infinitives that use properas as their main verb. Aren't you hurrying to go through the deep, per altum, meaning the deep mare, right? Through the deep sea. Aquilonibus, mediis, we got these two words, mediis aquilonibus, in the middle of the north winds. Vergil gets special effect by using specific names for the winds rather than just saying winds in general. Gives it a very epic quality to it. Aren't you in fact, or nay, rather, are you hurrying in the middle of the north winds to go through the deep? Crudelis, and then she ends the sentence by addressing him. This is evocative, so she calls him Crudelis. You cruel one. Remember, she called him perfide in the last few lines we did. One last time. Nay, rather, or aren't you in fact hurrying to get ready your fleet under a winter star and hurrying to go through the deep in the middle of the north winds, you cruel man? Quid si non arvaliena domosque ignotas peteres et Troia antiqua maneret, Troia per undosum peteretur classibus aequor? What, and this is just added for some effect here, what, you could even just treat it as its own little sentence there. If, now we have a conditional statement here because we have if, and we're using subjunctives in it. Notice the verbs. We got peteres, It's an imperfect subjunctive where you take the stem of the verb and then you add the ending, s. This is the infinitive, the present active infinitive adding the endings. That makes the imperfect subjunctive. And also maneret, imperfect subjunctive, and peteretur, petere, to seek, and then you're adding this subjunctive, this passive ending on it, peteretur. Got all imperfect subjunctives. It's a conditional statement. There's different kinds of conditional statements in Latin. I'm not going to get into all the details. We call this kind a contrary to fact condition, and Farr has a note that directs you to the appendix if you want to read up on conditional statements. Quid, what? If you, the you is the subject, because we got the s right here, right? If you, too, were non arva aliena peteres, if you were not seeking, okay, not seeking, arva aliena, foreign or alien fields, those are accusatives that come from the peteres. What? If you were not seeking foreign fields, and ignotas domos, and unknown houses. So domos is our noun, and ignotas is our adjective, and those go together. Ignotas domos. And one more condition on this, for this conditional statement, and, you got to think if, and if Troy antiqua maneret, and if ancient Troy remained, meaning if ancient Troy remained as it once was in its greatness. And if ancient Troy remained, so maneret is the verb, also present subjunctive, imperfect subjunctive, sorry, and Troia antiqua is the subject of maneret. Now we did all these are the conditional parts of the statement, and now we're going to have the conclusion of the conditional statement. If this and if this, then this last part. If you were not seeking alien fields and unknown homes, meaning in Italy, where you have not been before, and if ancient Troy remained, or were to remain, would, you got to put in would here, because of the conditional nature of the statement, would Troia, would Troy, subject, be peteretur, be sought. And the reason why it's be sought is it's a passive, peteretur, imperfect subjunctive, passive, third person singular. Would Troy be sought through a stormy, undosum, choppy or stormy, wave-filled sea? And so the undosum, ichor go together. And how are they going to seek it? Classibus, with your ships or with your fleets. One more time on that conditional statement. What if you implied, well, not implied, but it's in the endings, right? If you were not seeking alien fields and unknown homes and ancient Troy remained. Now, all those conditions, here's the conclusion. Would Troy be sought through a wave-filled sea with your fleets? Think of undosum, think of the word unda, which means wave, like to undulate, and undosum means filled with waves.